Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm so glad you took time out to step in and join me for this morning's webinar. We're going to be talking about passion and building your blueprint for success, going through that process about how do you create your life purpose? How do you create your business purpose? How do you create that life that you've been kind of struggling to try and find? That thing that, it's like, man, it's the end of the year and I'm looking at last year's goals and I'm looking at this year's upcoming goals and they seem to always be repeating. What am I missing? And so today, during this webinar, I'm going to make sure that I add value to you. My goal today is not to do, 45-minute sales pitch, but to really make sure you leave with some meat and potatoes, to leave with something that you can utilize and begin to implement as soon as we finish. Heck, I hope you begin to implement it in the middle of what we're doing if you can. So as you take a moment, make sure you take notes, pull out your notebooks, pull out your pen and pads. I've got notes, if you could see the other side of the screen, taped to the wall so that I can stay on track, so that I can make sure I deliver value. And ultimately, my goal is for all of that to come down off the wall and come into you so that you can begin to design your blueprint for success. Often people talk about, what do you mean by this blueprint for success? And that's really just a process that I go through with each and every one of my clients. And it goes from discovering to growing to mastering and then eventually telling it. So we're going to go through that process today. We all have limited time, especially this time of year. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get started. So my journey of sort of figuring out what success is and what success meant to me really began in an odd place. But as I began to utilize this tool, the Discover Your Blueprint for Success, what I started to see was that I began to compress time. I began to find more energy, more excitement, more passion. I thought, what is different now than before? I began to look at the difference in my life and I thought there's got to be an element. And so I started to really understand myself, but I also began to interview other people and ask them what drives them, what motivates them, what keeps them in the game longer. A little bit about me is really, so I have a degree, some of you may know this, in biochemistry. I know, biochemistry. The goal was I was going to go off and do geriatric research, primarily focusing on medication interaction among our geriatric population and how to alleviate the side effects of geriatric medication. And whether we were treating symptoms or causes or just treating more medication side effects. There's this compound effect that happens when you start trying to quiet a tremor, you end up with dizziness or sleep. So anyhow, that was it. I was going after that. Why was I going after it? Because that's what I was told to go after. I initially went off to college to study psychology and social work and all of those areas. And I got this note from my mom, so to speak. And she said, don't do it. You'll never make any money. It's not for you, blah, blah, blah. You were great in science. You were great in school at, the sciences. Go study that. So I said, okay, I'll go study that. So as my fourth year started to come around the corner, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm going to be like this guy that sits and stares through a microscope all day, counting things and doing science things and stuck in a white coat in a lab. I kind of started to freak out a little. So I tried to do a little side dig where I thought, well, if I get a teaching degree, maybe I could just teach biochemistry instead of have to actually live into it. But the circumstances turned out that I had to exit and take the biochemistry degree. Student loans and debt was piling up. So I began to do that and work into that field for a while. And as I sort of thought it was going to kill me, I mean, it was literally going to kill me. I just didn't see myself doing it forever. So I went back to school and got a master's in family psychology, family counseling, primarily focused on grief and chemical dependency. And I loved it. I mean, I was loving it. I was learning people's stories. I was connecting with people's history. It was everything that just jazzed me. And so I went off in about the 90s to work in family services, primarily focused on kids and families in crisis. Now, I tell you all this to help you get an understanding of where I am today and the journey that it took, because so often we go through a journey and some of it is told to us. In my case, my biochemistry degree, and some of it is pulled from us. We start to lean into it, we start to move from it. And so I loved being in family counseling. I loved working in DFACS and social services and all of that area. And not to blame it on my mom a second time, but she kind of called me and was like, there's a ceiling of pay. There's a ceiling of income. That you're going to reach a point and it's just going to stop. And she was right, because anybody that's in that area knows perfectly well that teaching and DFACS and social services and social workers, we have the highest burnout rates. We have the lowest pay. We're carrying 40 kids on a caseload and we're supposed to see each of them 3 times a month and still do it in under 40 hours. So she wasn't wrong. And what I sort of did was like, okay, she's right. I really need to figure out an exit plan, something that reflects success. And so I went into corporate America, became a master, got Microsoft certified in design and engineering and all of that. My job was network design and implementation. Went to work for a company on international network design and implementation. Basically, covering the globe was my job, and making sure that the globe all stayed connected towards the end of my career. I was a part of Y2K. I had to stay up for 24 hours straight to make sure the universe didn't blow up. For those that are young, let's just keep moving past it. And as I began to do this corporate thing, and as I began to climb the ladder and have this level of success, traveling internationally, earning a really big income, doing the things that I was like, man, mom should be proud. I've got a car, I've got a house, I've got an income, I got a full passport. People call me sir. Got credentials, got letters, got a retirement plan, got stock options. Like, I'm rocking it. 9/11 happened. I remember walking out of the office and into like the open space that was beside it. It was kind of like a field, and hyperventilating, literally just like choking for air. And I couldn't figure out why I was choking so deeply, why I was struggling. And I went into a panic attack. I mean, I literally just, I didn't want to go back inside the building. I didn't want to go back into the office. I didn't want to go anywhere. I just wanted to be out, open space. And as the days and weeks following 9/11 occurred, that feeling never left me. That feeling of like just not being able to breathe, not being able to inhale. I remember after 9/11 looking up and seeing a plane cross the sky for the first time, because those that remember, there was a big travel ban. And I remember looking up and just being like in awe that planes were back in the sky. People were traveling. Life was beginning to return to normal. And as life began to return to normal, that hardening in my chest, that compression just kept growing and growing. And I'm thinking, you know, we're in an all clear state. Things are returning to normal. People are returning to travel. I should be breathing. I should feel relaxed. Should feel safe. And I didn't. And I couldn't figure it out. So I went, honestly, to counseling. And through a series of conversations, through a series of really self analysis, I began to realize that I froze in that moment thinking, this is it? This is the end? And everything that I still wanted to do, everything that I still wanted to create, everything that I loved was undone. It was like on the other side of that moment. And I was frozen. I was stuck. I was locked on one side of the moment. And on the other side of the moment was everything I wanted. And I couldn't figure out how to jump that gap. I couldn't figure out how to cross over that barrier. I was literally dying on the inside. I mean, not dying. I felt like maybe I had turned to stone. And in that, I thought, whose story is this? Like, whose story am I living? This is not my story. Part of it was my mother's story. Part of it was my father's story. Part of it was my boss's story. Part of it was society's story of what it should look like, what it should feel like, where I should be. And I began to think, oh my God, this is not me. This is not, that we've all done that thing where we say out loud over and over and over again, this isn't me. This isn't me. This is not me. This is not me. And we begin to throw our hands up in the air and we begin to sort of scream and rally against the world. The thing was, some part of me was so locked and frozen, I couldn't do that. It was almost like if I did, I wasn't sure what me was anymore because I had sold it off to so many people and so many things that as I sat there, I was thinking, like, who am I? Like, who am I and what is it that I want? No, what is it like I want? Like, if I had been in that tower, where would I have been the moment after? What would it have felt like the moment after? Like that silence that occurred outside had like locked itself inside of me. And I thought, I cannot end this way. And sort of to compress time, there was a lot of coaching and a lot of counseling and a lot of depression and working my way out of depression and like stumbling and falling and stumbling and falling and investing in things and trying things and going directions and back and forth and up and down. And I mean, the journey was not like overnight success, overnight spontaneity, overnight awareness. It doesn't occur that way. And that's in part why I understand the process of discovering, growing, mastering, and then telling. Sometimes you spend a lot of time jumping between discovering and growing. It's not a linear thing. And then I've discovered that with my coaching clients, and I've discovered that with people that I worked with after that event, returning to family services, returning to foster care, returning to what I wanted to do. I began to reawaken my purpose and my passion and my vision. So that's where we want to begin today. I want you to understand that if you've been in that place, if you've been in that locked room, if you've been in that sort of suffocating silence, or maybe you've just exited, or maybe you visited throughout the course of your day or your week, we've all been there. We're all there. We're all going there, coming back. It's the reality that it may feel different for you, but it's that unfinished story that lives in you that we want to dig up, that having a blueprint for your success is going to help you capture and own. So how do we begin to develop that blueprint for success? We're going to go over 5 pieces of it. And so as we begin to each unpack each of the pieces, you'll begin to see how they layer, how they stack. They're not separate pieces, but they build on top of each other. So the first piece is really understanding your purpose. Often when I ask people, what is your purpose? The answers that I get are connected to people and places and things and events. And purpose is not connected to people, places, things, and events. People is not that why that I sometimes hear. And so often people will say, I have a big why. And if you've got a big why, you can put it here in the comments. Often that big why is more like a goal, more like a thing, more like a place, a state you want to arrive. Purpose is more about here. It's that DNA of who we are in our soul. It's that thing that exists outside of people, outside of time, outside of objects and income and status. It's that thing that we would do if nobody else on the planet existed, we would still try and figure out a way to do it. It is not here, it is here. And so often, what I discover is that there are people that have done a lot of purpose work up here. They've kept it in their head, they've trapped it in their head. They've lived it through their head, but they've never brought it down to here. And part of what had happened to me when I had frozen that time, when I had felt that rock in my coreness, was I was living a purpose from my head. And when all of that emotion and all of that stuff came flooding into me in that moment, this part of me, my heart, my soul, my purpose froze. It was like, are we done? Is it over? Did we not get a chance to speak? Did we not get a chance to live? Did we not get a chance to tell? And so, in order to do that, you need to be able to know what your purpose is, to know that feeling, to go deep. And often it's a series of questions over and over and over again that you go through. So, what would a purpose look like? Well, a purpose wouldn't look like my purpose is to provide an income at a level that will allow my children to go to college. Why? Because what if your children don't want to go to college? What if you suddenly win the lottery and you have that income? Then what happens to the rest of your life? What if your kids get a scholarship? Like everything that you're living is attached to somebody or something else. And if that somebody or something else goes away, do you still have a purpose? No. And that's not who we are designed to be. We're designed to have a purpose from the beginning of our life to the end of time. Our purpose doesn't change based on the environment. Our purpose is consistent and constant in who we are. It's kind of like your eye color. You can buy those colored contacts, you can put those fancy lenses on, but at the end of the day, you're blue-eyed, green-eyed, brown-eyed, whatever. It doesn't change. The same is true with our purpose. So, figuring out your purpose is really the foundation. When we talk about this blueprint, it is that slab of concrete that you pour, that everything else that you do comes on top of it. And once you know what that purpose is and it's solid and secure, then you can be building on top of it. So often, when I work in this space with clients and teams and organizations, their mission, their vision, their goals all sound like they call them purposes. And so I'll often challenge it back with, does it require somebody else to participate? Yes. Okay. What if that person doesn't want to participate? Do you still have a purpose? Guess not. Does it require you to obtain or acquire something that somebody could sneak in the middle of the night and take away from you? And some people will say, well, no, because I got locks on my door. I've got to get. But the answer would be yes after all this silliness. Okay, that's not really a purpose. Does it have a time limit? Like if you don't acquire it, complete it by a certain age, is it over? Or is it conditional upon you arriving at a certain point in time? Then that's not a purpose. Purpose, my purpose that I first unpacked back in 2004, sorry, was to have the resources necessary to be of service to others when asked. Now, I understand that being of service to others when asked sounds like it's dependent, but to acquire the resources meant that it might be knowledge, it might be time, it might be money, it might be connections, it might be awareness. It wasn't limited to just dollars and cents. To be of service was still undefined of what service would look like. To others, when asked, meant I didn't have to go forth and do. I would be in a position that if somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, do you, could you, would you, I could say yes. How that manifested, which is our second piece, the vision, was returning to social services, returning to foster care. As I began to develop the resources, I could then see myself in this environment, in this space, in alignment with my purpose, because often I would be asked, do you have time to monitor this kid? Do you have the resources to help this family? Do you have, like, who do you know? So I was beginning to understand how my purpose would fall into my vision. My purpose to be of service became an expression, which became my vision. Your vision is an expression of your purpose. Your vision is you living in alignment with that purpose through daily interaction. Your vision is allowed to change. You may go in as a social service coordinator, then become a foster parent, then become an adoptive parent, then become a coach and a counselor to families in need and crisis, etc. The vision is allowed to transition over time as long as it remains in alignment with your purpose. So if you're telling me my purpose is to provide for my family an income so we can go on vacation, I'd say, that sounds maybe like a goal. And if we tweak it enough, we might be able to put it into a vision, but that's not your purpose. Vision is that that sort of full expression. Think of it this way. When you have a palette of paint in front of you, and there's all kinds of colors, what ends up on the canvas is the vision. It's the expression of this there. And it's contained within the frame. And then the next time you may have a new blank canvas, a new frame of a different dimension that expression becomes. So your vision is your expression of your purpose in alignment, always with purpose. So when I was out of alignment in biochemistry and research and all of that, I was struggling. I was frustrated. I was exhausted. I was burned out before I even began my day because I was so far out of alignment, just trying to figure out how to hold my space so far out of my alignment was exhausting. As I moved into family services and began to get my degree in working with families and stuff, I was beginning to move back into alignment with who I really was called to be, what I thought my purpose and what I felt my purpose was. It took a lot less effort. It required a lot less energy to wake up and go through the day. When I see people living out of alignment with their purpose, I see them often spending a ton of money trying to find answers. They're exhausted, they're burned out, they're frustrated, they're beat up. And then they get up the next morning and sign up to be beat up again. And then they get up the next morning and sign up to be beat up again. And they go through the cycle of being beat up every day, thinking that that's the way life is supposed to be. And it's not how life is supposed to be. And that's where number three, the third element in building your blueprint comes in, is really understanding your passion. So I often think of passion as sort of that perfect playlist. The other day I was working on something and I was listening to Christmas carols in my office, the classic, Downton Abbey kind of Christmas carols. And I found myself like nodding off, relaxed and mellow, and still having work to do. So what did I do? I grabbed my friend MJ, Michael Jackson, popped him in. His energy, his motivation provided me the fuel to get back in the game and get the work done that I needed to go. And I was bopping and I was having fun. I was jamming. I was jamming, if we can call it that. Passion is that fuel that keeps you in. Passion is like that perfect playlist. Passion is the gas in the car. Passion is that thing that when poop happens, when people throw crap at you, when you wake up and everything is just stinky and rotten, you're like, I don't care. I got my playlist. I'm living in my passion. I'm doing what I want. It may not be perfect. It may not be right. It may not be easy. It may be full of people pushing against me, but I'm living my passion. When I started to move back into my purpose of beings of service, of igniting in people their sense of worth and value, of falling back into what I knew in my heart and my soul and my gut I was supposed to be doing. When I'd get that call that says, there's no money, you're never going to be happy, you're always going to be broke, there's there's a glass ceiling and all that. I was like, yeah, but I'm having fun. I'm living my life. I'm loving what I'm doing. Ciao, baby, click. It gave me that sense of being able to do what I wanted to do. So a visual for you might be, we've all been at that wedding or that Christmas party or whatever, where somebody is sitting and all of a sudden a song comes on and they jump up and race to the dance floor. And they are not the prettiest dancer. I mean, they are doing a combination of the sprinkler and the dad dance with the ugly face, but they don't care. They are doing their jam. That is their song. That's what passion should feel like for you when you're in your business, when you're in your daily activities, when you're living your life. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's not 24/7, 365. Sometimes passion comes and goes. It's like the gas tank. Sometimes we need to refill it, sometimes we need to check it. But passion should feel like that. This is my jam. And no matter what, I got to get on the dance floor and do it. So, when we begin to design this blueprint of success, this idea of success for our life, when we begin to move into who we need to be and move into alignment, we need to know our purpose. We need to understand what that vision or that expression of that purpose looks like. We need to be able to know what fuels us, what gives us passion, what gets us on the dance floor. And all of that is great, but we also need to know our truth. And this is one of the challenges that we all face. This is one of the things that, for me personally, it crushed me to figure it out. This idea of what is our truth is often found by understanding what is not our truth. So, for me, I'm not a great speller. It's just I have a learning disability. I don't know what my problem is. I'm not going to make an excuse. I'm just going to say that it has been a lifelong problem and nobody's fixed it. And so I'm just going to own it. I was also not really good at reading comprehension, or so I was told. I was advised that anything like law was out of the way for me because I couldn't read, I couldn't spell, I couldn't write. I would be better off laying bricks than doing anything that required me to use words. And I believe that. I was told that I was the dumb kid, the slow kid, the kid with so much potential. It's a shame it went untapped. I had a sister that was older than me that had the ability to study and master and learn whatever she wanted. Now I'm not going to say it came easy, but when she locked into learning, she locked in. And she had 5-color notes and like all flashcards and all of that. I had a sister that was younger than me that could probably play tennis against 3 people in the dark, blindfolded, and still win. She was just naturally athletic. She also had this charisma that everybody wanted to pick her to be on their team and just hang out with her. That's who she was. She was the one that got all the invites. By the time she graduated college, she probably had 30 bridesmaid dresses um, in storage because she was that kind of person. And so here I am in the middle. And all my life I was told, you're not the smart one. You're not the athletic one. You're the just get by one. And so I bought that story. I believed that story. I lived that story because that's what everybody told me. So when my mother told me, go into science, it's the only thing you're good at. It's the only thing you'll make any money at. It's what you need to do. I was like, okay, I'm buying that story. When I went back into family services and she told me, don't do that because you'll never make it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to live your story. Yeah, whatever you say. That unpacking who we're not often leads us to discovering who we are. And in order for us to put our passion and our purpose and our vision to work, we have got to do the BS story breaking. And we can't just simply say, I'm not going to buy my story anymore. Now, the hard work is taking that BS story, that bologna filled sandwich, and looking at it, listening to it, asking ourselves, how has that impacted my life both positively and negatively? Who told me that story? What gave them the right to tell me that story? Why was that story accepted by me? And what truths do I now hold to dispel that story, to break that story, to undo that story, to allow me to stop drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak? Once I understood who my truth was, And that's where you'll often hear me say, I know I am worthy of everything that I dream. And I began to stop letting other people's stories or truths, their truths about me, define what I would do next. It was easier for me to move into alignment with my passion. It was easier for me to see my visions becoming reality. It was easier for me to see my purpose. That idea of like, wait a minute, when I'm at the end of my day, when this is all over, or looking back to that 9/11, if this is the end, am I okay with my story? Am I okay with my truth? Do I feel like I did it my way? So to quote Frank Sinatra. And I think what paralyzed me in that moment before was the answer was no. Like, oh God, no. This isn't like that dying, clenching feeling of this. No, I'm not satisfied with this story. No, I'm not satisfied with this current chapter. No, this is not me. Please don't let this be how it all looks at the end. And so having to figure out that truth, unpack that truth, understand who I was okay. It didn't have to be marvelous and fantastic and expressive and beautiful. It didn't have to be the smartest kid or the most athletic kid. I was here for a purpose. Each and every day, I am allowed to wake up. So therefore, I have a purpose. And my purpose is not to copy somebody else's, to buy into somebody else's story, to live out somebody else's unfinished journey. No, my purpose is to live my purpose and live in my truth. So, of the four elements, a lot of the work that we do in designing and discovering and growing our blueprint for success happens below the neck. It happens in the heart, in the soul, in the centerness. Our purpose comes from our heart. Our vision comes from the thing that we feel most comfortable living inside of. Our passion beats inside of us. Our truth frees us from the inside. And then the fifth thing is the plan or the process. Now, that may be a bit of the headspace. It may begin to build from the thinking space, but it has to be grounded in alignment with our purpose. We can't have a plan that's over here and live over here. We know that feeling. When we're living somebody else's plan, somebody else's blueprint, somebody else's thing, it's like putting on clothes that don't fit. It's like wearing somebody else's shoes when they don't fit, they don't feel right, they don't belong to us. Copying out somebody else's plan never works. Never works. Now, I want to sort of caveat that by saying living in your purpose and looking at somebody else's plan and understanding their process and their thinking and their design and gaining from their experience and their knowledge and their growth, totally cool. I do it all day long. I'll look at what somebody else is doing, or as a coach, I'll explain what I've seen happen and work in other people's thing. But I'll say, how does that feel to you? How is that in alignment with what you want? How is that overlapping you and your goal? And from there, we begin to do it. So when we think of this blueprint, much like building a house, that plan has to come from our purpose. Otherwise, it's almost like looking at a photo online of somebody's red door and then trying to build the rest of the house ourselves. It's like we don't know what's behind the walls. We don't know what's behind the door. We don't know how many rooms are on the inside. We can only estimate based on the windows that we see. We don't know if there's a basement. All of this guesswork goes into it because we took a snapshot of somebody's life. We said, that's what I want. That's the life that I want. That's the thing that I need. That's where I got to be. I'm going to copy everything they're doing and abandon my purpose, abandon my truth, abandon my vision, abandon my passion. I just want to live like they're living. And so I'm going to go and buy their program. I'm going to buy their thing. I'm going to do what they do. I'm going to follow them and copy. And I encourage you, as somebody who is in this space, who's lived in this space, who constantly is aware of the influence I have, if you don't hold to your purpose, if you don't hold to your vision, if you don't hold to your passion and your truth, it won't last. Whatever success you achieve is only going to be temporary because you're going to burn out. You're going to have that moment of like rock hard centeredness when you're like, oh my God, this isn't me. This isn't what I want. This isn't what I desire. Please, somebody free me. And that's where historically I find working through the Discover Your Blueprint for Success process helps so many people because knowing what your purpose is, understanding that your vision, understanding your passion, discovering your truth and unpacking the untruth, and then setting up a plan is how we get through this thing. And it is a journey. It is a pathway. It is that thing that we do each and every day with each and every decision. For me, when I'm presented an opportunity, when I'm working with a client, when I'm given um, an assignment, when I evaluate a book for somebody, I will say, how is this thing that I'm doing, this person I'm interacting with, this product that I'm creating in alignment with my purpose? Not doing it. Because I know what will happen. Even if I sacrifice for just like that little bit of income, that little bit of thing that I need, like I know it's not in alignment with my purpose, but it'll just really help me get to here. The minute I start wandering off that path, it's a long road back. It looks like one step off, but it's like 20 steps back. So when I look at my business, when I look at my life, when I look at the decisions we make as a family, I'm like, how is this part of my purpose, both in my business and my personal life? Okay, I can see how it's in alignment. So how is it in alignment with the vision, the image that I want to live? And when I see that image, it's often more in feelings. It's kind of Van Gogh-like in the sense that it's a lot of colors and energy and light without a lot of definition. It doesn't necessarily have a particular kind of car or a location or an income, but it's a sense of safety. It's a sense of security. It's a sense of freedom. It's a sense of joy. It's a sense of um, excitement and challenge. Like there's all kinds of feelings that live within that vision of how I want to live my life. But there's also maybe some specifics because I know that my vision is allowed to change over time. So for the short period, maybe there's an object or a person or an income or an event in it. Knowing that that can come and go, but the other colors, so to speak, in the picture might remain. Then I'll look at it and go, does this give me passion? Does this add fuel to my tank or does it take it out? Now, I'm okay with burning a little fuel to create a little more. But if I'm constantly giving up the fuel, if I'm constantly burning it and there is not a gas station in place, man, it's leading to burnout, leading to exhaustion, leading to frustration, leading to that place where I know I can't come back from. I've been there, I've done it, I know it, I don't want to do it again. So when I take on projects, when I take on work, when I take on decisions in my life, and then I reaffirm, is this my truth or am I trying to satisfy somebody else's truth that they think is about me? So often the truths of other people that we try and live are really the ones that they're afraid to expose in themselves. Yes, I had spelling challenges. Yes, I still have writing challenges. Yes, I still get frustrated and I'll say, hey Siri, how do you spell? But what I've learned is my passion will take me beyond that frustration. My passion will keep me in the game, even though I have challenges, even though I have difficulties. No longer to those excuses of I'm too old, I'm too poor, I'm too rich, I'm too whatever. I'm, gender, race, color, ethnicity, having kids, not having kids, age of my kids, and whatever. All of those excuses in the past that I used to just like slap on, just be happy to wear like a bumper sticker walking through life. Because I'm connected with my passion, because I understand my purpose, because I understand my vision, I just take them as part of my normal day. I move beyond who I am in that moment into who I want to become. And so, this idea that my purpose is not to lose 20 pounds, my purpose is not to make a six-figure income, my purpose is not one of those smart goals. No, my purpose is who I am. And so, what I want you to understand as we kind of wrap this in is we haven't talked about goals. We haven't talked about those traditional New Year's kind of goals, losing the weight, earning the income, changing the business, getting married, getting divorced, writing about all of those goals that we typically call our vision for our life or maybe our purpose for the year. Those things come to be because we're in alignment with who we are. Because having being able to create an expression of who I am, to have the resources necessary to be of service, the vehicle at the time might be to improve my health. Because if I'm healthier, I have more energy. If I have more energy, I can serve more people. If I can serve more people, I'm living a more passion filled, purpose centered life. So the 20 pounds isn't my purpose. The 20 pounds isn't my vision. The 20 pounds is a tool that I need to use to create this purpose filled alignment in my life. The creating a six-figure income isn't my purpose, isn't my vision. It is the tool that will allow me to have more resources to be of service to more people in a way that I believe I'm best called to serve. Don't let goals be the starting point. When we let goals be the starting point of our definition or defining our blueprint for success, what we end up doing is we'll chase that goal for a month, 2 months, maybe a year, and all of a sudden it's like, wah, wah. It just doesn't. It's like, done it, tired it. It's kind of like when you really, really want something and you can't afford it, so you buy the cheap version of it or the knockoff version of it. And then a few months later, you're really frustrated and bored with it because it just didn't really satisfy you. It's kind of like that hamburger drive-through meal. It was like, yeah, it filled me up for a moment, but it didn't really last. Why? Because it was a goal. It wasn't you living in alignment with your purpose. Living in alignment with your purpose will keep you satisfied, like deep satisfied, and will awaken who you are, and it will give you energy. It will save you money because you're not going to be racing around trying to figure out other people's stuff and try and copy it and borrow it and do all the it's funny. It's like a well waxed ski. Once you've got that wax on and you've got the right wax for the right snow, you're sailing. It's when you understand what your real purpose is, like real purpose, like do the hard work, real purpose discovery, time compresses because everything that's not in alignment with that purpose, you don't bother with, you don't get involved with, you don't think about. You just like, I'm sorry, I didn't even notice that. I sometimes am called clueless because something will happen. I'll be like, really? I didn't notice. Because I'm sort of like a horse with blinders. That's not in alignment with my purpose. That's not part of my vision. That's not passion filling to me. I got yelled at the other day because it was like, well, you could sit and watch TV with this. I'm like, one, I don't like the show. And two, I've got a really good book I want to read. And so what I missed was that didn't fill me with passion, but also, oh, but being in the company and companionship of my family is important to me. How do I bring these two things in alignment? Let's do this instead. Understanding that you can live within your purpose and have a full life. It's exciting, it's invigorating. So, your challenge today is really to ask yourself, what is my purpose? And then go through those questions. Does it involve other people? Does it involve other things? If it doesn't occur within a particular amount of time, does it still exist? Is it timeless? with your vision. Is my vision of how I want to live, that picture frame, that thing that I want to be a part of, in alignment with my purpose? And then passion. What is that playlist? What is that fuel? What is that thing that if I get to do, it's like my jam, I'm all in? What is my truth? What are the things that I know about me, not that have been told to me, not that other people have labeled, not that other people have given me, but what is it I know about me? And how do I express my truth into the universe through my passion, through my vision, through my purpose? Are they all working together? And if you get a yes on all those, then you get to say, okay, now let me plan what I want to accomplish, where I want to go, how I want to express my purpose into the universe over the next year, next month, next 10 years. Your plan, your process needs to be the expression of your vision and your purpose into the universe through your truth, guided and fueled by your passion. Now you see why I love working with clients and working with teams and organizations around this idea of discovering your blueprint for success, or building this blueprint. Once you have these foundation things, once you understand what your purpose is, what your vision is, what your passion is, what your truth is, and what your plan or process is, then you can begin to execute it. You execute it faster and faster and faster and faster over time. You begin to sort of isolate yourself that that's all you want to be and do and be a part of. And it begins to happen more rapidly. You begin to find time to do more things that bring you more joy. You stop wasting money on things that you hoped were the fix that really weren't. You begin to understand that those little goals that you set up every year that don't get done didn't get done because, not that you didn't want them, but they weren't connected to anything that really brought you joy in life. I go back to that moment when I stepped outside the office. I mean, literally, I remember all of the chaos and the confusion and the noise of everybody in the break room watching the TVs and asking questions and trying to figure out answers. And somehow I felt like I had to escape all that and just be out in the open space and just try and breathe, because there was that moment where I was like, if this is the end, oh shit, I'm not ready. I'm not done. I'm not finished. And that fear and that awareness for a time locked me. But as I began to move through my personal growth and my professional development and lean into this understanding of coaching and being in alignment with my purpose and understanding who I really was and dumping the bogus stories of other people, I began to have a life that expressed me. That now when people walk into my world, they're like, yep, that's Eric. That's got Eric all over it. Man, that sounds like Eric. That is him. Or, you know who you need to call? Eric. Why? Because that is him. That's the life that I want to live. That's the life I want you guys to live. And so I hope you found that this webinar was helpful. This little unpacking of discovering your blueprint for success was useful, and knowing that you have 5 areas to focus on, and focus in on those things. We will be doing the Discover Your Blueprint for Success January 18th. If you haven't registered, there's still a few seats available for that. You can go over to successlifeu.com to unpack that. We're also going to be starting the mastermind. The mastermind is really around taking these lessons and expanding them across the 5 areas of our lives, and also how to implement them and how to hold to them and what do they look like when we live them out. And so that mastermind begins the first Tuesday, and you can also find out about that over on Success Life U. What I will say is, if you can get into the Discover Your Blueprint for Success, do so, do so, do so, do so, because we're going to deep dive. We're going to be in an environment where you and I, one-on-one, and in the company of other like-minded people can really hear what passion sounds like, really hear what purpose sounds like, really design out vision statements and truth, and talk about our truth and talk about our BS story. And it's a safe place to do so, because we're all going to explore that BS story, that bogus story, those untruths, and for once and for all, we're going to bring them out into the light of day, crush them and kill them. And then we're going to begin to develop processes and plans to live out our life in alignment with our purpose. So I encourage you, if you haven't signed up for Discover Your Blueprint for Success, do so today. You can find it over at Success Life U. If you know somebody that you're thinking, man, they need this, they're going through college, they're going through a job change, they've been struggling, I can see them frozen, locked in time and place, encourage them to check it out. Buy it as a Christmas gift. I don't know. But I tell you, 2020 will only be different if you tap into that deep understanding of what your purpose is. If you really do that piece of work, that purpose, vision, passion, truth, transformative. That's all I can say. Well, I appreciate you guys so much joining me this morning. I hope you enjoyed our little Saturday morning webinar on purpose and passion and truth and vision. It's been a great deal of fun for me. I appreciate you guys so much. If you need me or have questions for me directly, go ahead, eric@ericgreed.com. Again, the website for the classes are at successlifeu, as in the letter U.com. And encourage and engage other people to participate. Like I said, going through this process will make it so much easier to fill your dream. I went through this process the other day on a very long consultation call, which was kind of fun. But I know the client left exhausted because they were trying to figure out their branding and their marketing and their voice. And I was like, I don't hear you in this, was almost like my first response. Like, I don't hear you. I mean, I hear what you want to sell, and I hear I hear like the stuff on the shelf, but I don't hear you, and I don't understand why you're like, I just kept jumping between the two things. And as we went through and understand the purpose and the vision and the passion and the truth and the plan, they began to modify and change things. And as they did, they said, oh, I'm going to love doing that. Oh, this is going to be so. And you could hear the excitement of what they were going to be doing in their space, in their thing, grow, because they finally stopped like, well, somebody told me I had to do this, and if I didn't do that, and if I did this, and they like let all of that go long enough to let who they are and what they want to do and how they want to impact the world come to the surface. And then we busted out the BS stories of like, well, nobody would buy. Would you buy it? Yes. Okay, that's one person. Do you think there's at least three? All of those BS stories we tore apart and broke down made it so much easier for them to see their business model, and how they wanted to impact the world, and who they wanted to work with and who they didn't want to work with, and things like that. So wherever you're at, personal or professional, you're going to find that there's like this moment during the day on Saturday where you're going to be like, oh, I'm breathing again. This is all breaking apart. Oh my gosh. And then you're going to want the day to go on for like another week, but time does have limits. So I will see you guys again real soon. If you need me, Eric@ericgreed.com.